Welcome back to Morgan's video blog, Morgan's online blog in video format. Today, I'm here to share with you more notes from Virtual Balticon 54. Today's topic, there's no finish line, momentum for writers. The panel description was as follows. Experienced writers who have been on the roller coaster for a while know the big secret: you never really make it. Just because you've sold one book doesn't mean you'll sell the next one. And just because the last one didn't sell doesn't mean the next one won't hit big. This panel offers tips and strategies for maintaining the will to keep creating. The titular panel at Virtual Balticon 54 consisted of the panelists Joshua Bilmes as moderator, D.H. Eyre, Keith R.A. DeCandido, Scott Edelman, and L. Marie Woods. Of all the panels I hit at Virtual Balticon, this is literally the thing I've been wrestling with the most, especially this month. But honestly, every time I get rejected, I want to look at my work and see what can I do better. When we talk about momentum for writers, we're talking about when things are going well versus productivity grinding to a halt. We're talking the long term, not the short term. So here are 7 struggles of getting or finishing work. First off, well, if there's a deadline, at least you know when you're going to be done. Secondly, sometimes you can think you're done and then the editor will give it back to you. Third, work often comes in feast or famine, either more than you can handle and maintain your sanity, or crickets. Fourth, never give up, never surrender, at least as long as it's something you feel is worth the effort. It took Scott Edelman 44 years to get a short story accepted by Asimov's magazine. But he kept trying and getting many of those works published elsewhere to prove that he was on the right track. Joshua Bilmes says, if I saw you trying to get a car unstuck from the ice like that, I'd tell you to get a tow truck. If you are stuck on something, maybe it's time to try something new, or maybe it's time to get some help. Number 5 for struggles of getting or finishing work is deciding how much you want to prioritize your work. For L. Marie Wood, she put off starting a family because her career was getting momentum and she didn't want to stop that. From tip number 6, rule number 1, never give up your day job. Selling a short story for $25 isn't going to pay the bills. Even if you can always resell it when the rights revert, that's still $25, maybe 50. You need benefits, at least here in the States. And the final tip on, finishing and getting work, don't be a shark in the writing world. Online or at conventions. Don't see people as connections you can use to advance your career. People will always find out if you're using them. Network, but do it to make friends and be willing to help them as much as you ask for help from them. So, work is hard. How do you keep going? Here are 8 ways to keep your momentum up. Tip 1, you may have heard this one before, allow your first draft to suck. Instead of noodling over the first 3 chapters for the rest of your natural born life, accept that the majority of the words are going to be the word the anyway and move on. Secondly, have a variety of projects and a variety of stages. If one writing story isn't going well, Well, try a different one. New characters, new settings, new worlds might help. Or if fiction writer brain needs a break, maybe editor brain is good. You can do line edits if you want simple tasks, or revising and reconceptualizing the whole piece if brainstorming's where you're at. Third way to keep up your momentum, feed your creativity. If your well runs dry, so might your writing. Read books both in and outside of your genre. Get inspiration from elsewhere. Watch shows. Take a walk and drink in the world around you, be it nature or people watching, whatever floats your boat. Fourth way to keep your momentum, if you can't write what you love, see if you have other stories in you. For Elmarie Wood, she writes psychological horror, but it was too close to home when she had kids. So, cue writer's block for 9 years. Meanwhile, she wrote other things. She wrote cozy mysteries, she wrote gardening articles and other sorts of articles for her local paper. Tip 5 for maintaining your momentum: when life hits you, it's okay to pivot. For D.H. Eyre, in 1 year, his dad was dying, his lease ended suddenly, and he couldn't write book 5. So instead, he started what he thought was a novella, and 75,000 words later, he had a book. Tip 6 for maintaining your momentum: when the deadlines won't move, try to create an outline and get the words out as best you can. Except it's gonna suck, and pray you have time to edit. Just get it done. Tip 7, remember, give yourself permission to not be godlike. Stop telling yourself that I'm supposed to write something meaningful to change the world better than anything I've ever written before. Let it go. It's a career. You'll learn from that story how to write a better story, but you need to move on. I might be talking to myself right now. These are tips from Scott Edelman, and he went on to say that he couldn't have written his favorite story without having written the 20 before it. And the final tip on maintaining your momentum for now: the pandemic has been hard. Be kind to yourself. Joshua Bilmes couldn't get edits done during March, so he did other stuff. When writing your own work, publishers will often extend a due date. Just don't ask if you don't need it. So, let's talk about our panelists in specific, making it past those make or break points. Writing is a tough field. Sharing your dreams and your sweat and your soul with strangers, hoping for a connection. But we all have those break points, sometimes dozens of times, where we have to decide if we're going to keep going or if we're going to invest our time on something with maybe a more guaranteed return on investment. For Scott Edelman, he's still got a day job. After writing comics in the 1970s, he wanted to write his own stuff, and he was tired of collaborating. But he will quit any job that gets in the way of his writing. For Keith DeCandido, as a former editor, he saw what worked and what didn't and what was overdone. And working in the editing world gave him connections. But knowing people, while helpful for pitching, doesn't mean you can get away with writing stories that suck. It can help you know the market and know of opportunities coming, though. For D.H. Eyre, back in 2008, 2009, he was unemployed and his marriage was crumbling. He wondered if he was writing stories good enough to get published. So he entered one in a little writing.com contest and won first prize, and got published in an e-zine. Yeah, there were only like 30 contestants, but he was still the winner. Next, one of his short stories from writing.com got picked up by a small press. And then he got asked to contribute to an anthology. So from writing.com to the anthology to now the conventions that he hits, he's created his own creative network that challenges him, encourages him, and lets him know when and where new opportunities are. And for Elle Marie Wood, the convention world is her tribe, but she's only been back for 2 or 3 years. During her 9-year drought, she wasn't here, but people would compliment her local paper articles, or her students would ask, and she could have all the answers they were looking for. Not keeping her writing to herself helped. Hearing others say that she still had it gave her the confidence to go back to her writing. You haven't lost it all. It's just sleeping. Which, I guess, in close, writing is one of those things that you can always come back to, which is part of the attraction and part of the struggle. Only you can decide if the costs outweigh the benefits. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this post, please subscribe and tune in again next week for more writing tips and writerly musings. Bye-bye.